Hi there, my name is Miles Scherer, and today I'm going to be um, doing my poster presentation on public mistrust in U.S. federal government institutions, um, and then trying to understand its causes and potential remedies. Um, so I'm a program on the environment student, and I had the pleasure of interning at NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, with my supervisor being Sophia Wasserman, and then my faculty advisor was Christy Strauss from the program on the environment as well. So in an increasingly polarized political climate, discourse over the state of public trust in federal institutions has been especially pronounced and is very observable in the present day. And public trust in U.S. federal institutions has been waning, as we will soon discover, with specifically environmentally aligned agencies struggling on a national scale. And I wanted to focus on them given this being my major. So my two research questions were, what are the primary causes for public mistrust in scientific research? And then two, do certain communication methods have the capability to play a meaningful role in remediating public trust in federal institutions? So at my internship, I was an oral historian at NOAA, and I had the opportunity and pleasure to intern a couple different NOAA staff members and understand what they do as well as their personal lives. Um, and this kind of got me interested in, well, they're sharing their stories. Does this help people? Is this a communication method that kind of helps people, being the public, kind of trust them more? And that kind of led me into wanting to look at these two aforementioned questions and then understanding later, are there any communication methods that we can try and implement into how our government institutions communicate with the public? So I surveyed 75 Seattleites to understand their opinions on the causes and potential solutions for public mistrust. And then I employed an extensive literature review on 15 different studies, texts, looking at a couple different websites as well. And then I also had my informal observations of the fishery staff, looking at, do they trust the government? Do they think people trust the government? And so on. And then I ended up seeing from my findings that there is a huge lack of transparency. I believe it was just over 50% of people said that they did not think there's enough transparency in how the government functions, and specifically its agencies, um, as it relates to scientific research. And then my literature review kind of dived into some other topics that are adjacent to that, and it identified corruption, fairness, government performance, and political polarization as being big issues. So, potential remedies, I found that the most commonly identified communication methods were live Q&A sessions, newsletters, and then TV programs, or things like YouTube. And this was over 60% of responses identified these three as the top communication methods that they would like to be seeing being implemented into the government. My literature review also identified framing strategies, ethics classes, and more standardized oversight practices as being potentially very helpful. We can see from this graph that environmental institutions are struggling when it comes to garnering basically just trust in the work that they're publishing. So key takeaways: public mistrust is at unprecedented levels and must be addressed. And so we need to, look at these more modern communication methods that have been validated by the public to maybe try and get this trust back. And so, given this lack of transparency, we need to basically really get on it. And if we are, maybe we can actually start making bounds and, confronting things like climate change or issues in our fisheries and so on. Thank you so much.